It's our responsibility, I think, to mentor the next generation of entrepreneurs.
Today I'm chatting with Mick, a serial entrepreneur who has operated numerous businesses, exited one with a successful sale, and currently operates a thriving Amazon business. Stick around to hear from a seasoned veteran with great tips and insights from his vast array of life experiences. So Mick, thanks for coming, man. This is awesome. It's good to have you. I've known you for a little while now, and I just love building the relationship that we have. We live like a mile away from each other on some acreage, and so yeah, it's just been fun getting to know you, man, and hanging out at your place. You got this awesome barn that I'm super jealous about. One of these days I'm going to build that on my property. But yeah, so Mick, tell us a little about what you do, what's your business?
Yeah, sure. So first of all, apologize for my appearance because I just came off the lawnmower. I was mowing the lawn, you know, I'm measuring the acreage.
Love it.
But yeah, so my business, I actually have there's too many of them really. So I'm involved with an Amazon business, which is probably what I'll sort of more focus on today, but I'm also involved in 2 elevator companies in Canada. We have a holding company in the Cayman Islands, and then we have subsidiaries in Canada. That's not a tax dodge, it's just where the company was formed. We have about 600 or 700 elevators under maintenance in Canada, so that's one company I set up, and I'll probably refer back to that later. I have an Amazon business where we own the design and the patent on a water filter. That's probably the business I'm most active in on a day-to-day basis. We have rental properties, so we have a bunch of rental properties, so I take care of those. I have a huge number of investments in just basically passive investments in startups. The startup stuff has been very interesting. So in many cases, I've gone in and acted as a sort of in a preliminary advisory role in getting the startups going, and then helping them to get set up. But then after that, I kind of back away and hope that they make me some money one day. So they're basically lottery tickets. But then I'm also an advisor on the technical committee of a venture capital fund. And we do investments into ancillary cannabis tech. So what we're doing is trying to sell shovels to the miner. So a lot of our technology that we incubate through that program is actually not about touching the plant. It's all about providing the IT and the scaffolding, the enterprise scaffolding around those businesses so that they can run efficiently. So, you know, as cannabis went out of the sort of hippie stoners phase into real business, they have all the exact same problems that every other business have. They've got warehouse management, inventory control, credentialing of employees, you know, in AP and HR processing. And all of those can't actually be carried out by a company that is at the federal level because it's illegal at the federal level. So what our incubated companies are doing is typically spinning up ancillary, or basically the equivalent businesses at the state level, and then selling those services into the cannabis companies. So it's actually pretty interesting. So we've incubated over 160 companies now through that particular group, and it's very, very closely based on the Techstars model, actually.
Really?
Yeah. So that's kind of that kind of gives you that's a broad brushstroke of a lot of things that I'm involved in. But the Amazon business. So how did I get involved into being an entrepreneur? I think was the next thing you're thinking about asking.
Yeah. What got you into being an entrepreneur? What's your background first of all, and then how did you end up doing? You know, it sounds like you like to do a lot of stuff as an entrepreneur. So yeah, what brought you to that?
Yeah, and I wouldn't actually consider myself an entrepreneur when I first started out in my life. You know, originally I'm a civil engineer. With a specialization in geospatial, so land surveying, land development, civil engineering, construction, that kind of stuff. And so I've worked all over the world. So I left Australia. I went to my last exam. I came home from my last exam, worked out, I passed it. And I worked out, had all my credits to graduate, and I got a backpack and $300 and a one-way ticket and went to London. And most Australians have done that, but I happen and stay for 1 to 2 years, go back to Australia and never think they're going to leave the place again because it's the best place on earth. Wah, wah, wah. Usual, you know, Australian approach. But I left on that journey 37 years ago and never made it back. So I've lived in the UK, you know, traveled all through Africa, the Middle East. I worked in the Sudan for 6 months on 1 year. I lived in the Cayman Islands for 5 years.
5 years.
Yeah, working as basically in land development down there and boundary surveying and things like that. And then I came to the US and did my master's at A&M in computer science. So you've got that geospatial matched with computer science. Now I get into the digital mapping, GPS. So I was North American sales manager for a very large company here that pioneered GPS in the US. And I was North America. I started off as a frontline sales rep, and within about 5 years, I had taken on the role of North American sales manager, and I'd never done sales before. I was an engineer. And so within 5 years, I was actually North American sales manager of a division within that company. And we had about, $65 million collar around my neck, and I did very, very well. But I got to the point in that career where I'd felt like I'd gone about as far as I could go in the company. I was well respected and all the rest of it. I was well compensated. They were very generous with options and all the rest of it. But when I looked back and looked at how much money that would actually get me, could I retire on it? It was sort of like, it's not quite enough. And so my idea was that I needed to get out. I either needed to be happy with what that company would or wouldn't do for me, or I needed to go out and do something for myself and within a business while I still had the drive and energy to do it. So that sort of was the impetus. And a little backstory to that was the epiphany was that I had a guy I was trying to hire for an inside salesperson. I had this chap call me up. He did a great phone interview. He was excellent. But then and I said, okay, I'll invite him in for an interview. I got him to come in for the interview, and as soon as he walked through the door, he's like in his mid-50s, and I thought he's not the guy that I wanted. What I wanted was an entry-level salesperson. He's the perfect guy for a C-level salesperson. If I wanted a seasoned veteran to go in at a high level with gravitas, he was absolutely the guy. He was a very good candidate for that role. But afterwards, I had this epiphany going like, holy hell, that's me. In like 10 years, at the time I was in my early 40s, and it's me in 10 years. I'm going to have worked at this company for 20 years. I'm going to get riffed, and I'll be the same as this guy trying to come and get a job from me, And so I thought, wow, and that's what really started the dialogue for me. At the time, I was getting lots of offers to go work for other people, but I never did. And so I went back and I built up all this list of impossible criteria that would never be met. So I was safe in saying, well, I've made an honest effort, but I listed all these criteria. And then one of my ex-clients, I was up having drinks with him one night, and he said, you should come work for me. I said, you can't afford me. And he said, well, what if you owned part of the company? I go, oh no, there goes the first check mark, And he said, and it's in Fort Collins. Oh God, there's the second check mark. Oh, I can work from home whenever. Oh, that's the third check mark. Okay, I have to kind of call bullshit on myself, And so I went back to the company and said, hey, listen, I'm getting offers all the time. I'm tempted occasionally, but throw a bunch of options at me. Give me some golden handcuffs. And I'm just to take the temptation away. And they said, look, it's a bit tight on that stuff at the moment. If we don't have anything we could do. I said, okay, I resigned. So I resigned and bought into a small company. We're about 10 people at the time when I joined. I think when I left, we were at about 70 or 80. And we sold our company to Airbus.
So this company, are you allowed to share what you sold it for?
We sold for about 14.
Okay, 14 million. And how long did you work in that company from when you started to when you sold it?
7 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, then after that, what'd you go to next?
So after that, I took a nice vacation to Australia, and gloated to all my peers about my modest wealth, and which is incredibly modest. It wasn't a huge exit, but it's enough to keep the wolves from the door. I then actually, through some of my contacts in France, I actually did some contract work in Toulouse for a little bit after that. And then not long after that, I had one of my former employees from the GPS company. he and I had always been in touch since I'd left 7 years earlier. And he was one of these Shark Tank guys who was always looking for the next thing, and he said, we should do a business together. I said, sure, let's do one. But everything he kept coming back with me was, it just didn't seem like a good product. And he was trolling patentsonline.com kind of thing, looking for patents. And he was trolling that continuously, looking for different patents. And he would just say, what about this? What about this? What about this? And I go, no. And then he came up with this one patent, which was actually thought it was pretty interesting and fairly compelling and was more aligned with what my core values were. And that's a big thing for me, is only kind of trying to get in business with people who share my sort of core values. And we'll talk about that a bit later too, if you want. But the bottom line is that he finally purchased this. It was made by this guy in Sheboygan, Wisconsin, who I think is just brilliant. And but he'd taken it as far as he could. He was making them out of plastic PVC parts that he'd buy at his local Menards store in Sheboygan.
What?
It's a water filter, actually.
Oh, sure.
It's a water filter for sort of those inflatable soft-sided pools. And he would go out, he'd get an order in the mail, and he'd go out to his shed and start drilling away on his jigs and presses and making them. And he was looking to sell it because he'd sold a couple of thousand, and I can't believe he made more than 1,000 by himself with PVC pipes. But he sold a couple of thousand of them, and then we bought his patent from him and his design from him, and he transferred that to us. We then took that to full tooling. I've never done tooling before, but we went out, found a manufacturer. I learned more about injection molding than I really want to know, but we took it to full tooling, and then that was our product that we now sell on Amazon. Gotcha. So we've been running that business since 2013. Mainly me. I'm the only person who's really active in the business, but it's sort of a side hustle, because as from my previous statement, I'm a bit stretched thin. At times, so
your time, you got all these things going on.
Yeah, totally. There's so many things to keep track of. One of my failings, actually, probably as an entrepreneur, is part of that, is that I haven't really focused on one thing.
So common. So many entrepreneurs struggle with the same thing.
Yeah, not focusing on one thing.
That's part of their personality.
Yeah, but it's also, for me, I'm in the luxury, like it would be more dangerous if I didn't have my nest egg. Right, so for me, I can kind of say, look, it's okay if you want to play for a bit. It's okay. I've played for a little bit. Actually, the water filter business is quite. I think it's a great business, and I think someone could take it and really run with it. It just needs more love.
Yeah, which is really good. Yeah, cool business. You obviously do a lot as an entrepreneur now, and it's funny that you say you never really thought of yourself as an entrepreneur, and now you're just you've dove, head first into the lifestyle, and you're doing all these different things. So switching gears a little bit, tell us a little bit, maybe some challenges that you faced that you've had to overcome, how you overcame them maybe, and what they were. Actually, probably
honestly, the biggest challenge I had was, I grew up on a sheep and cattle property in Western New South Wales, 35 miles out of town. Something breaks, you got to fix it yourself, otherwise it's 2 days and harvest has got to get in, whatever. So part of the problem I have is that I have to do everything. And that is I joined a group of very, very high-end Amazon sellers. And they have a whole scaffolding and ecosystem around creating and launching products, scaling products, searching for new products. And they have a whole process around that. And I joined that. And that was sort of like an epiphany for me. And I realized I just got to get out of my own bloody way. And that was the problem. I was in there, I'm flogging myself, just flogging myself. And so that was the biggest impediment to scale, was me getting out of my own way and realizing I didn't have to do it all myself. So
that's huge.
So now I'm a firm believer, you can do it once, you can write an SOP and you can delegate it. And so I'm kind of a really huge believer in that now. I mean, I think as an entrepreneur, you've got to be in the bit bucket, as we'd say in software. You've got to be down in the weeds. If you don't know it at the atomic level, then you shouldn't know it at the start. It's okay, then you start pulling back, but you set the standard for how you want things to go, then you sort of gradually pull back. So after I started outsourcing stuff, my life became so much better.
outsourcing stuff, right? I mean,
So-
delegating, giving control away to other people. That's huge, man. I think a lot of people struggle with that. A lot of entrepreneurs struggle with that too. Just
Yep.
needing the control, like no one can do it as good as I can do it.
Yeah.
But like you said, you can't scale
Yeah.
if you can't do that.
You can't scale. You're only as good as what you can do in a day, right? You know, in my case, I was manufacturing, actually doing all the assembly. So I outsourced all the assembly to my manufacturers. And after I did the economics of it, they were charging me like 30 cents less than what I thought my actual internal costs were. So, you know, when they came back and told me how much it would cost to do the assembly part, I nearly bit their hand off, you know. And so they've been doing the assembly. I dislike it because I'm a little bit further away. They're in Colorado Springs. I don't have quite as much insight to what's going on, but it is what it is.
Yeah. Good challenge, yeah. So,
Yeah.
So major challenge, letting go of some control
Yep.
in order to scale. That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell us, I guess, for the entrepreneurs listening and people that are now maybe starting their journey as an entrepreneur, maybe they've been doing it for a few years like you. I mean, what maybe top 2-3 pieces of advice would you give?
Ooh. Yeah, okay. Man, I've been in so many shitty operating agreements, right? Like we all have probably. But you know, I think the important thing is your partners are probably the most important. I mean, obviously the product's got to be viable, or the service, whatever it is you're doing, but your partners for sure. And the partners are both partners that you're involved in the business with, but also partners that, like financial partners as well. So, top rule, know your partners, know their spouses in particular, or their partners. If the partner is involved in the business, typically run. If the
spouse is.
The spouse, the partner of the partner, like the spouse is involved in is actually actively involved either in the business, or maybe they're not an actual partner in the LLC or whatever you've got, but they're sort of on the sidelines, like run, you know, because when you're talking to your business partner in a meeting, you're getting information back. You don't know, or you're talking to the partner's wife. You don't know whether you're talking to the partner or you're talking to his spouse, right? Because everything's going back across the pillow, right? So, like for me, I have a real aversion to getting involved with people who have their spouses involved in the business in most ways. I've actually walked away from 3 different opportunities that I thought were actually probably pretty good because I could see dysfunction. I was sort of being brought in. They said, well, we'd like you to come in and kind of help us get a start. I'm going like, no, I don't think so.
You saw dysfunction in the relationship of the partner and the spouse.
Yeah.
That is crazy.
And the other partner in the company and his spouse were also in the company. It was just a recipe for disaster. And actually, in both all these situations where I've chosen to sort of not engage, I've been proven right. You know, that the relationships between the spouses and the partners all became so fraught and dysfunctional that they couldn't sort it out. Second rule, operating agreement. Get your operating agreement done. And if you ever need, I've got a great document that was given to me by our attorneys in Canada for when we're setting up our operating agreement for our Canadian companies. And I thought it was a really good summary of the things you should have in your operating agreement. And so I'd be happy to share that with you if you want to.
Oh, we'd love to.
Yeah. And it's just like, it's all stuff like, okay, what's the threshold over which I have to get approval from anyone else before I make this expense? What's the threshold for this, for signing a contract? What's the threshold for this? And, you know, all those sort of little things. But it's really super important to establish the divorce clauses. In fact, I think and it's counterintuitive because at the early part of a business, everyone's optimistic and it's a honeymoon period. But honestly, the divorce clauses are freaking more important than anything else. And I'll be happy to share that with you.
Yeah, and we can share that with anybody else.
Absolutely.
But yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks for that. Yeah. What other advice would you give to young entrepreneurs starting out? You've been doing this a while.
Yeah, you know, I think you've got to be data driven. It's good to be passionate about something and, you know, be blindly passionate about something, but you've got to be data driven. So you've got to validate what it is you're actually trying to do. And just look for the weaknesses in it, basically, because I think that's probably I see a lot of people who kind of get all excited about something, and yes, it's a good idea, but they've not really done the TAM and the total available market analysis. They go, yeah, that's a really cool thing for a market of like 100, you know. But if you're trying to do something a little more to scale, then, you know, you really need to.
You need to know the numbers, need to know the data. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Accounting is probably a huge one. Spend time on an accountant and a bookkeeper, maybe just a bookkeeper initially, to get your books set up so that you can be acquired. And so get everything sorted out. Even if you don't intend to sell, just do it, because it's a shit show trying to go back and try to I can think of other words to use, but to reconcile, to resolve some, you know, sort of issues with categorization of transactions in the GL and things like that. And if you just take the time, get it sorted out first off, get the books sorted out, it'll seem overkill because you haven't made your first dollar yet, but just get it done. You can last for a couple of months, but that very soon thereafter, you need to get your books set up and just religiously carry on with them.
We've actually found that a lot of entrepreneurs who have been doing it for years and making some decent money even don't have their books set up that way. They're unorganized. They don't know answers to simple questions. I mean, so most people don't set up their business for an exit.
Yep.
Right?
They don't.
But maybe it's just organization and being prepared. We just see that all the time.
But not only that, it's like a lot of people may go in and start their business going, I'm going to pass this on to my son. Well, then, you know, they have a life event, right?
This son's a millennial. He wants to go make coffee.
Exactly. Whatever.
I'll take my plumbing business or my electrical business.
Exactly. And so at that point, you're then stuck with, oh, what do I do? And then you go, well, here's a shoebox with receipts and my Excel spreadsheets. You know? and no one's going to acquire you, right? So, and we ran our business, like our Amazon business, I ran that out of a spreadsheet for years and years and years until I had the outsourcing epiphany. I'm going, why am I beating myself up each month doing the books in this? And now it's that is the best sort of $150 a month I spend. And it's fantastic. Yeah.
Well, wrapping up here, this has been awesome. Thanks for doing this with us, Mick. It's really awesome. But since I know you, I'm going to ask you this because we've talked about this, and I really appreciate this about you, I think. But you have some really cool values. I think you have sort of a legacy mindset. I wanted you to touch on maybe just how you view the next generation, what we can offer. What's the goal here as an entrepreneur? Why build? Why sell? Why make money?
Yeah.
You have some good thoughts on that.
Yeah. So as I think about that, and really what was the start of my kind of journey along that path was when I exited our company in 2012, you know, I was important to the company, but there were people in the company who were equally as important, some probably more important to the success and the exit that we attained than just me and my partner in the company, right? And we ended up with a little modest amount of wealth out of it, but none of our employees made anything out of it. After that, I thought that really sucked, because everybody should be able to share in the wealth that they help create. Okay? So my idea was that it's our right as an entrepreneur to make money and also lose money. A lot of people don't understand that being an entrepreneur also means you lose money at times. But it's our responsibility, I think, to mentor the next generation of entrepreneurs. So for me, one of the things that I kind of talk about when I kind of advising very early stage people is to try to have this sort of legacy mindset. So if I think about what's really beneficial economically, it's people who want to share the wealth. And so, you know, what I tell my entrepreneurs when I'm talking to them about stuff is, guys, if you get an exit, it's 100 million or something like that, right? You don't need $100 million to have a good life. You need about 10 or 20 million dollars to have a truly excellent life. But imagine if you took that 80 million and distributed it across all the people who helped make your business what it was to allow you to get the 100 million or your 20 million, and distribute that out and share the wealth. But you do that in such a way that they understand that there is an implicit requirement on them that if they're ever successful, they've got to pay it forward. They've got to do the same thing. And we've all had reference bosses in our lives, right? Where you go, man, this is a tough call. What would so-and-so do in this situation? And you want to be that so-and-so, you want to be that guy. And they go like, I just got an exit. Oh, this is great, I'm going to buy a new car and blah, blah, new house. Blah, blah, blah. Ah, but what would Mick do? You know, or what would whoever do, right? And the idea is that no, he allowed me to actually pursue my dream by giving me that little injection of capital because he spread the wealth. And so that's sort of part of what I believe. And so the companies in Canada, the elevator companies in Canada, the only reason I got involved with those was because we made them employee-owned companies. And
That's awesome.
So we made them employee-owned companies with a view that eventually we would sell those to the employees. And we're just actually in the final stages of negotiation on both companies to sell them.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
Well, man, that's awesome. Great advice too. I really hope we can adopt that mindset and live that because I love that. How much do we really need? I mean, we need some,
Yeah.
like you said. But I love the idea of paying it forward, taking care of people, and then letting them hopefully do the same for someone else.
Exactly. And only 1 in 100, maybe 1 in 500 will actually be the next. You know, I'm not.
That one could change how many other people's lives.
And think about the ripple effect that has within the economy, where you've got this huge cadre of pay it forward mentality entrepreneurs because your sole job as an entrepreneur should be to curate the next generation of entrepreneurs. I mean, make your company successful, sure, but we should be. I like to think of it as shark's teeth. So, as the front teeth fall out and they all retire or whatever, you've got the next curated layer of teeth entrepreneurs coming up behind them. That's sort of how I like to think of it.
Well, I love that. So hopefully, for whoever's listening,
Yeah.
this is curating a little bit of that next generation today. So
Yeah.
thanks for the time, man.
No worries.
We'd love to have you again at some point. You do so much, and I know your journey's not over, so I'm
Yeah.
curious to see what you do next. But
Yeah.
for now, hopefully we've curated a little bit of the next generation. So thanks for your time, man.
No worries, mate.
So good. Thanks, Mick.
Yeah.